AskReddit, what is one thing you are incredibly proud of, but cannot tell anyone? Story 1. I was on a road trip with some friends, and we were starting to run low on cash. We stopped into New Orleans and met up with a friend of mine who lived there and started discussing the idea of busking to make a few extra bucks. My friend said he knew of an easier way to get cash that'd probably have a bigger payoff than playing shittily to drunk people on Bourbon St. He said there was a gay bar nearby that held a contest with a grand prize of about 200. The rules were simple. They laid out some bills on a table, starting at 1 and leading up to 100. I then had to unsheath my wiener and start cranking like never before in front of a bar of thirsty men. The goal was to reach the highest bill possible with my ejaculate, and then I could claim the bill and all the money beneath it. After all of my friends refused, it was up to me to pull through, and I did bullseye. Right on Benjamin Franklin's dumb face. I earned enough money to basically get drunk enough to forget what I just did and get us enough gas to make it to Austin victory. Story 2. I haven't lost in a match of Guitar Hero battle since about 2009. I got good enough that I was not allowed to enter local contests, like 5-star and perfects on just about every expert song. I haven't told anyone at my university because I intend to use it to hustle someone when the chance comes. Story 3. I worked in a gas station truck stop for maybe 8 months while I was in college. One guy, an older gentleman named Mr. H, would come into the store every day and get hot dogs and a cup of tea. We would make the hot dog special to order for him because he was never in a hurry and would sit and eat in the booths every day. I enjoyed that job and most of the customers, but Mr. H was someone I really liked seeing come through the door. He was sick. I never knew. He stopped coming for a few days and then I found out he passed away. He had no wife and very little family. Was always alone. When I saw him, I went to his funeral. I cried. I don't tell people cause I start to cry. Story 4. My friend and I bought a tombstone for our best friend's mother. He lived out of town and we went up there on Memorial Day and found out she had no stone. We didn't want him coming home to visit her grave and not be able to find it, or ever know she didn't have one. Story 5. A friend of mine who suffered from confidence issues at the time won an academic award. Winning seemed to really boost my friend's confidence and it made the dynamics of our friendship group a little easier. A few weeks later I was informed that I had in fact won the award and it had been incorrectly granted to my friend. I was asked if I would like the award to be removed from my friend and re-award it to myself. I wanted to say yes, as I was applying to extremely competitive jobs at the time, and such an award would help me distinguish myself from other candidates. But I said no. My friend kept the award, and to this day doesn't know that there were ever any complications. I'm proud that I won the award, but it's difficult to mention to my friends and even more difficult to mention to employers. Story 6. I dated a girl that I worked with for a little more than a year. It ended officially, but we continued to see each other for a while after that. I found out later that she started seeing someone else during the casual phase. Since it was only casual and no commitments were made, I couldn't really get mad. However, I was still a little angry about the deception, so every day when I came to work I took a packet of soy sauce and emptied it into the plant she kept on her desk until it withered and died. Story 7. One time in high school, I went during class to use the bathroom. No biggie, but the trash can wasn't in the usual place and being lazy, all the girls had just thrown their paper towels on the floor. I went around the bathroom and picked up all the towels and threw them away so the janitor wouldn't have to. Story 8. My best friend and I were in the early college years and he had an old VW camper. We were dating 2 girls who were also best friends. One night out in the camper, we created the Cunnilingus 500, which was a race to see which of us guys could go down on their lady and get her to first. Then we switched and the ladies did their job. I won the first round and he won the second. He kept reaching over and touching my shoulder and looking into my eyes trying to get in my head when we were on the receiving end. He definitely succeeded. He likes to tell his construction workers that job whenever I show up to help on the job, but I can't bring myself to tell anyone I know. Story 9. I helped my girlfriend to stop being bulimic. Can't tell anyone because I was the only person who knew in the first place. A handful of people asked me how I did it, or for advice or whatever, so instead of replying to everyone I'll just post it here. I'm certainly not an expert on this, but I think there are a few important things to realize up front. My girlfriend essentially chose to become bulimic. I don't mean to place blame on her, or to dismiss the severity of her problem or anything like that. I am merely pointing out that, as far as I know, some people have very severe psychological issues which cause their eating disorders, whereas some people, such as my girlfriend, pick it up due to reasons like social pressure. If it is the former, you don't stand a chance, and you need to get her professional help. The two of you need to have a strong relationship if you want to be able to help her. To put it bluntly, you have to be important enough to her for her to take your help seriously. She has to want help. If she doesn't want to change, there is no way around that. What I did to help my girlfriend was very simple. Note: simple is not the same as easy. We had already been together for close to 2 years when she finally told me. We were extremely close, and she wanted help. All of those things made things a bit easier. Basically, we talked about it daily. Either that morning or the night before, I would have her promise that she would go the day without purging. This is where being so close came in. She cared enough about me to take that one promise seriously. Seriously enough to fight through every day without doing it. She wasn't perfect. There were days when she slipped up. When that happened, we talked about why it happened, and I let her know that it hurt to see her doing it, that I was disappointed, etc., and then we would go right back to it the next day. There was one other part to that, but it was far less important, and mostly just a goofy way to lighten the mood. For every day she went without purging, she would earn an extra kiss for the next time I saw her. Obviously, this was far less important than the promise, but it certainly didn't hurt. Other than that, this really came down to her. I was there for her when she needed it. I did my best to make her realize how beautiful she is. I made her make promises, but in the end, it came down to her fighting through every day. For the way she did that, and came out on the other side, she is far stronger than I could ever be. Just keep fighting, and do your best to make her realize that it is worth it for her to fight too. Other than that, there is really nothing I can tell you that will help. If this sort of thing doesn't work, it might be time to get her professional help. Story 10. I'm proud that I've never done drugs. You'll see why I can't talk about it when the hive mind sets in. Edit. Okay, since you people like to nitpick, I'm changing it to illegal drugs, because apparently drinking soda makes me a drug addict. Story 11. I have donated 10 of all the money I have made and currently make to charity, but I don't want to tell anybody because I think they will think that I think I'm better than them. Story 12. When I was 10 to 12, I lived in Flint, Michigan. For those unfamiliar, think about Detroit. My mother and I lived alone in a little house next to a meth lab counterfeit money printing house. The people who ran it were really nice and we became friends and everything was chill. They kept their ghetto friends away from us, and we didn't rat them out. Win-win. They noticed that I was rather small, but smart for my age. Bottom line is, I was paid to move drugs across the few blocks of Flint near where we lived. Because, who would stop a little white girl and search her tiny pockets for drugs? They also enlisted my help in breaking into cars and other such things. I don't tell people because A, that's all illegal stuff, and B, that makes me seem ghetto as. I'm proud of it because it kinda makes me feel a little bad, and I got to do some dangerous stuff when I was tiny, while most other girls were playing with Barbies and such. Story 13. This girl I've had a thing for got drunk with me one night, and confessed that she's had feelings for me and wished we could date for a while now. The reason I can't tell anyone about this, she's my best friend's girlfriend, and they're staying together. Story 14. Helped a friend with an eating disorder and contemplating suicide get into therapy. Had to go to the first session with her, but she is doing much better now. Story 15. In my junior year of high school, I found out over the weekend from a friend in a separate class that we were going to have an in-class quiz in economics the next week based on game theory. The basic idea is that the teacher would give us 6 chances, and each time each person could choose to collaborate or compete. If less than half the class collaborated, everybody who collaborated got 40 points and everybody who competed got 20 points. If more than half the class collaborated, everybody who collaborated got 10 and everybody who competed got 0. At the end of 6 rounds, you added up your total points and that was your quiz score, out of 100. This meant that in theory you could get up to 240. I immediately started thinking about how to cheat the system, and eventually managed to think up a system where everybody could get a 180, besides for 2 people who would get 120, a volunteer and me. The plan went off nearly flawlessly, and everybody got at least 140 besides for me and my friend who both got 100s. It was the best any class had ever done on that exercise. The teacher was really cool, and I know she would have appreciated that I managed to pull it off, but she would have had to take away the grades. By the time I could have gotten away with telling people, I felt like nobody would care anymore. Story 16. I am a reasonably well-known fetish short story author. Well-known in certain circles: breast expansion, weight gain, penis growth, etc. That is, it occupies a large amount of my time, when the mood hits, and I've only had a few stories that aren't critically well received. I also write as my real self, but none of those stories are ever very well liked except by friends. It's occasionally very annoying that I can't prance around and tell everyone I know that I managed to get 10k downloads in 2 days. Story 17. I'm really good at DDR and have played with one of the world champions. Damien. I'm not Lil Q. Some of my friends know I'm good at it, but I don't like to talk about it because it's DDR. I've full Combat Max 300 not missing a single note and have Fascination Max and Pluto Relinquish under my belt. The videos aren't me playing, just a reference. Story 18. I'm pretty good at. I don't have a huge penis or the best stamina ever. I'm just passionate, I guess. It's the only thing I'm any good at and I can't make money of it or brag because that's douchey. Story 19. The other week I spoke to an absolutely beautiful young woman and the conversation flowed from the bus stop up until my stop across the city. I found her absolutely gorgeous, charming and an all-around fun person. As I got off I realized I didn't ask for her number or anything. I'm proud I talked to her and proud I could find myself in a position where I could feel anything for anyone again. Of course I haven't told anyone because I don't have any close friends in this city. Story 20. I took a hooker's industry cherry, i.e. I was her first ever client. She was cute, and was nervous about her tiny dress which other hooker would be, and in general, making me believe it really was her first time. I didn't savor the experience though. Story 21. My wife is pregnant with our first child. We are only 8 weeks along so we can't go crazy and tell all of our friends and family, but we can't help wanting to shout it to everyone. Story 22. I was rubbing one out in my room one night, and as I finished, it unexpectedly shot out way farther than it never has before, and it all landed in the garbage bin at the side of my bed. Story 23. I went to Oktoberfest and watched as one of my friends drunkenly had diarrhea multiple times in public, walking the streets. Why am I proud of such a horrible thing? I have Crohn's disease and was making do without medication for months and I still handled my better than that. Story 24. I was walking down the street and I saw an old lady in a wheelchair trying to get inside her house, but for some reason the wheelchair wouldn't go in, so I helped her out. She kinda scared me cause she smelled and would just murmur things, and I was just a stupid 12-year-old. I was proud of it because I had never told anyone. Story 25. Recovering alcoholic. 13 months totally sober. Most people don't even know that I drank in the first place. As far as everyone knows, I'm always the DD. Story 26. I was on a college trip with my high school 2 years ago. We were at Berkeley and we had free time to just walk around and see what life is like around the school. I was eating at a pizza place with my friends right down the street and I saw a blind guy walking. Fellow almost got hit by a car and I saw it almost happen, so I randomly just got up and left to go help the guy. He had lost his was trying to get home, so I helped him home. When I came back my friends asked where I went. I just said I saw something and continued eating. TLDR helped a blind guy find his way home. Story 27. I hit 1337 comment karma for 5 glorious minutes. The comment that put me there was a Mila Telepany post where someone's GF sticked him a cool portrait thing, and I replied, put a ring on that female now while she's vulnerable. I screen capped it and everything, and I can't wait to show my future grandchildren. They want care, and neither will anyone else, but I do. P.S. I was kinda upset that I can't downvote my own posts to keep my karma at 1337. Story 28. I stupidly donated to Invisible Children for the Kony 2012 campaign. I felt like when the whole scandal came out and when I didn't receive any confirmation email or posters wristbands to help with the effort. Within a week of donating, however, I got offered my career job, so I guess karma was on my side. Story 29. If you have ever been to the Mirage in Vegas, you will know the mirror cutouts of the Beatles. I once borrowed the Ringo Starr cutout for a night from the display and partied all night in Vegas with it. The whole Mirage went into a code red looking for it. There is now security posted around the display. Story 30. I saved my roommate's life from a heroin overdose. Her friends that she did heroin with called me while I was asleep and said Derp is overdosing. We are gonna drop her by the dorms, K, and I told them to take her to the hospital. They hung up on me and brought her to our dorm at 2 a.m. I didn't take her to the hospital because I knew she didn't have the money. I kept her awake for God knows how long. I wish she would say thanks for saving my life and not telling anyone I overdosed on heroin. Story 31. I made a stupid meme that made the front page but couldn't prove it because I didn't want anyone to find out what my username was different one because I had made some incriminating comments with it. Story 32. Whenever my girlfriend or some of my friends whip up something to eat or drink, I will always say that I like it and how nice it came out. Even if I don't really like it. Funny, my girlfriend tried making some hot chocolate from scratch and it didn't come out the way she intended. She handed me a cup and as I sipped it, I complimented on how it still came out pretty good even if she thought it didn't taste that great. I refused to say anything bad about it, but she's on to me. Story 33. I have a really big penis, but I know if I tell people about it they will think I have a really small penis. The grand irony of big penises. People want them but you can't advertise. Story 34. Taking my abusive ex to court for assaulting me and trying to kill me. He's entitled, comes from money, an addict, is a bratty 30-something yo, and terrifies me. This whole process is daunting, but as time progresses, I don't regret it. I deserve justice, not what he did to me. Standing up to a bully is scary, but incredibly liberating. Wish me luck. Story 35. I've had an extremely nice, high-paying job the last 7 years after turning in a resume with a fake work history, degrees I don't have, and bullshitting my way through the interview. I've been promoted 4 times since then. After starting off making around $60,000 a year, almost $40,000 a year more than I ever made before, I now make over 6 figures a year. Before this job I never had a job outside of retail. I turned in the resume more as a joke than anything else and it kept snowballing. Don't get me wrong, I've worked harder for this company than at anything else I've ever done. It hasn't been easy, but I'm extremely proud I've went from retail money to a high-paying corporate suit on the back of degrees and work experience I never had. Story 36. I currently hold the 4 spot in all-time negative comment karma on Reddit with my troll account, and I am closing in on the 3 and 2 spots very fast. I will be champion soon, and you wonderful folks are all putting me there. Story 37. I love photography and I really think I have taken some great photos. With some more experience, I think that I could really put out some awesome shots that people would want to buy. I've even had people tell me they like my photos, but they are amateurs, just like myself. I'm proud of my work, but I know deep down that if I put my work on display, it will get ripped to shreds by those who are far more serious about photography than I am able to be. My self-confidence is already pretty low as it is due to other factors, so having others tear into the last thing I really care about would probably destroy me. Story 38. When I was in high school I was achieved the coveted rank of Gladiator in World of Warcraft on a competitive battle group during TBC WTLK. I spent way more time than I'm proud of on that game, but there's a certain thrill of being one of the best at something you really enjoy. Story 39. I can like a star, like this NSFW my husband knows, but it's not exactly something I can put on a resume. I've never done, or work of any kind, just a talent. I started college when I was 16, and have pretty much paid my own way for every single thing, including engineering school and law school since then. No one wants to hear about how smart you were in high school though. Story 40. I was like 6 kilograms when I was born. Go fat baby me. It's not something I can really bring into conversation though. Oh, and when I was 2 years old I ate a packet of cigarettes and puked them out. Obviously I live to tell the tale and smoking is. Story 41 I was BuzzFeed's one Halloween costume of 2012. I'm not incredibly proud of it, but I think it's pretty cool. I think the only time it is topical would be during costume shopping. Story 42 I haven't cut in almost 4 years and haven't had the want to in almost a year, but I can't tell those that know because they thought I was stronger than that and hadn't been wanting to. Story 43 I scratched my coworker's car, who me and other people hate, with my door. I went to open my door and the wind pushed my door into his and left an inch-long scratch and nothing on mine. I wanted to tell everyone but he would have tried to fight me if he found out, or worse, make me pay for it. Story 44 I've been told by 3 partners that I gave the best they'd ever had, ever really, Jesus Christ. Not something to boast about to family, friends or coworkers. Story 45 I've saved the lives of various people throughout my life. They don't know or they'll think I'm making a mountain out of an anthill. It involves changing the batteries of carbon monoxide detectors, turning off stoves, being a seatbelt Nazi and being the only one willing to pay for a taxi during wild nights out. All of those incidents would have quite possibly led to deaths and worse injuries than sustained if I hadn't been there. Story 46 I can push tampons out of my without using my hands, just by using my downtown muscles. Once I broke a bed while having, can't tell anyone because it was during a secret affair going on for over a year. Story 47 It's not that I can't talk about this, I just don't because I can't stand the thought of people thinking I'm bragging, or worse, having to sit through praise. Years ago I worked at a telecommunications center for the deaf and for a short time had a coworker that I'd chat with on smoke breaks, and we generally got on well. On one break she, a bit reluctantly, started telling me about a batch of food Shed recently picked up from the local food pantry. A can of fruit had gone to spoil and Shed meant to give it to her son. At no point had she seemed ungrateful for the food she was given, but was upset and distressed at the fact she tried to give her son, who at the time was about 4 or 5, a special treat and couldn't. Now there are always extenuating circumstances regarding any situation that makes most people ask for public assistance, but I didn't go into them with her, mostly because I didn't know her that well, and I sure didn't want to seem like a for asking. Her story definitely struck a chord with me though, because my family struggled a bit growing up. Her story lit a fire in me that I had no idea was still smoldering. I thought the idea of a small boy getting a rotten can of peaches was so wrong that I went out and bought him $150 worth of groceries out of my own pocket. Broke as in my early 20s, but it didn't matter. My needs were taken care of and someone else needed a hand. A few days later I got a couple random high fives from other coworkers about my act because she told them, and while praise from peers is all well and good, I didn't set out to seek it and I felt a bit awkward. It was one small thing that I felt needed to be done and I don't tell anyone about it because I dunno, I guess I feel that I shouldn't be praised for such a thing. God's damn it, if a mom's struggling and isn't an absolute moron and her kid wants peaches, he'll buy the kid peaches. No questions asked. There is no reason at all in this country this should be a problem. I'm thankful that I have clean running water just because, and anyone that thinks otherwise is near the end of my grandfather's life he lost the ability to walk or control his bowels, but he was too proud to ask for help. Every day after work class I went over to his apartment and brought him food, cleaned him up, took care of him, and talked to him for a while before going home for the night. I never told any of my family members because I don't want them to know what he suffered through at the end. Story 48 I wrote a very useful, rarely used program once. I can't say what it is here because it would be identifying, or to anyone else because no one would believe that some random cretin would have written it, but US Redditors, you're welcome. Story 49 I can play this and this, but I live in an area where no one likes progressive music, metal heads galore, but bring up Rush and that's rare, and progressive metal no one. I have found bandmates, but they all live in Pittsburgh, which is an hour and 45 drive from where I'm at. Story 50 There is a store where we find very low price stuff. We've seen the same exact items at a very large chain for almost double the price. We've made over 500 in gift cards by just returning it to the larger store. Story 51 I have 2 very successful companies and I make tons of money. I don't want people taking advantage of me, so I tell everyone, yeah, we are just doing okay. No one ever wants to hear you are doing well anyway. Story 52 Late to the party, but what the, my 6-month-old nephew died from SIDS, and with any death that young, they had to do a full autopsy on him. I stopped my sister-in-law from adjusting his clothes when she saw him in the casket, thus preventing her from seeing the horrible incision the me made when they cut him open. She never realized why I stopped her, thankfully. After everything else she'd been through I could, at the very least, spare her that. Before he died I considered myself a very religious person. Now I could give about all that. I can't tell anyone that I'm proud to have freed myself from religion because the tragedy made the rest of my family even more religious and God-dependent. I also feel ashamed that it took a personal tragedy for me to realize it was all bullshit when I could see so much evidence for a godless universe on the news every day. TLDR, stopped my SIL from seeing something she shouldn't have, became an atheist. Story 53 When I was a junior in high school, 2 of my best friends and I developed an incredibly elaborate plan to break into our school and steal some odd 2,000 worth of speakers and sound equipment. It included stealing master keys and making copies, which we still have, mapping out where and when the night patrols would be, mapping where the security cameras could see us and how we could get past them, covering ourselves in gray sheets turned us into amorphous blobs, and finding an escape route for the 300 pounds of stuff. We executed it flawlessly and should all still be in jail. Story 54. Back when I was around 14, I broke into my school with some friends to do stupid, and we noticed the janitor, who was around 50 to 60, wasn't walking straight until he collapsed. We phoned 911 from one of the offices, guided the paramedics to where he was, then we left. It turned out he was having a stroke but made it to the hospital and served. The school was looking into it to see who had called for help, but we never said anything because we probably were also going to get in trouble for breaking in. Story 55. I'm a recent college grad and I donated a large portion of my income to the Red Cross when Japan was devastated by the tsunami a while ago. There's really no way to tell people that without sounding like you're fishing for something. Story 56. I am a straight girl. I have been told by another straight girl, as well as a gay guy, that I am the only girl that's ever turned them on. I shouldn't be proud of it, but deep down, I like to mentally high-five myself. I suppose I'll give you a picture. This was taken on Saturday, so it's recent. Story 57. I wrote a relatively successful mystery novel that has earned me a good bit of money, but I published it under a pseudonym. A few of its scenes are mirrored after some very personal experiences, and I am too self-conscious to own up to it. If you search hard enough, you can connect my name to the pseudonym, but my friends and family have no idea that I have published anything. Story 58. My little brother asked me to give him a pinch of chewing tobacco when he was 12. I said sure, and he promptly vomited. Whilst it was in the kitchen sink and I was impressed, he quickly learned the potential nauseating effects of tobacco, and now he can't touch the stuff I can. Story 59. Since this is important to the story, I'm a girl. Ever since I was very young, I would masturbate in a way that's not normal for a girl to do. I would kind of grind my heel into my crotch. Try it sometime, it works super well. But because I could only get off that way, I had a really hard time in relationships, especially when I was younger, because most young guys seem to rate their entire self-worth on being able to make a girl. I've had relationships end because of it, and internalized a lot of frustration about not being able to from normal stimulation. I had resigned myself to thinking I would never have a normal or have fulfilling with a partner, that I would always be abnormal or messed up in that way. But around last year one evening I was just like, fuck it, I'm gonna do this, and I masturbated to with just my fingers. I know it sounds like a silly thing to be proud of, but I was just overcome by relief and happiness. I cried. I even took myself out for ice cream afterwards. It's not something I can ever tell people, but after being completely resigned to the idea that I would never have him with a partner, getting that much closer was so liberating. TLDR, I masturbated. Story 60. I'm the one responsible for the name Vinyl Scratch. I can't tell anyone because I suggested the name anonymously on a co-thread and no one would believe me. Story 61. I can have dozens and dozens of orgasms, one after the other. I have never reached a point where I actually couldn't come again, only a point where I did not want to. Story 62. Nobody wants to know about my enormous monster poops. They can reach lengths of approximately 16 inches and are bigger around than my wrist. I frequently pass these pain-free. I'm impressed with my own. Story 63. I've been able to make some pretty good investments over the past few years and have made a reasonable sum of money. I know my parents are aware something is up, I just brush it off. Story 64. First time I gave my A. It took me an hour afterwards to convince him that no, I've never given anyone head before him, cause according to him, it was that good. I can't brag about being a natural at it without sounding like a now. Story 65. I reported my father to the police for drunk driving, his second offense. Where I live you can report drunk drivers to 911 but you have to testify in court against them. At the last minute he changed his plea to guilty and I was off the hook for going up in front of the court to tell the judge what I saw. I can't say anything because, aside from the fact he is a very difficult drunk and would kick my if he ever found out, I would lose my job due to the fact I work for the family business. He was sentenced to a 2-year driving suspension, but was allowed to drive after 6 months with an on-board breathalyzer. Story 66. After high school I was really insecure about my body image, so I got rid of my glasses and got contacts, and then started hitting the gym on a set workout routine and followed a strict diet. I put on 30 pounds of muscle in about 2 years and I haven't seen anyone from my high school or church since I started lifting. It's like this weird secret I don't even recognize myself when I look at old pictures of when I had glasses. I feel healthier and stronger than ever though, and my confidence issues are nearly non-existent since my little transformation. Story 67. I had an incredibly psycho-manipulating roommate for a while who started going around talking about me and taking my stuff and trying to hide it, and the list goes on. I came home one night and had enough, so I took her toothbrush and scrubbed the toilet bowl with it. The next morning I woke up to her brushing her teeth. Made my day. Story 68. I stole a keg my freshman year of college. This Halloween party shut down stupid early. The second keg was barely tapped, and we only had a few blocks to tote it. Granted, I will probably read this post, but it's cool I think because of nepotism. Story 69. The size of my shit's relative to the size of my body. It's one of those things that you can't go around boasting, but I can't help but feel a beaming sense of pride every time I look in the toilet. Story 70. I blew a coyote's face off with my kid-sized hunting shotgun when I was 12, and I liked it, and laughed as its body twitched and wanted to kill another animal. I wasn't supposed to mess with guns, but it was killing chickens, yo. Needless to say I was a up kid. TLDR, I was a weird kid. Story 71. I know more about fashion than most of the women I know. If I told my friends, I would be painfully mocked and ridiculed, or maybe they would ask me to pick out wardrobes for them. Who the knows? Story 72. I'd like to share a story of my friend and her boyfriend. I call it Assassin. Backstory: my friend is the sweetest, most considerate and nicest person I know, who also happens to be extremely manipulative and cunning. Not for evil though. This is her text to me. So boyfriend and I were in bed together. And I had to really bad, so I started pressing on his stomach so he would, and he let out a really big one, and I did too. And it smelled so bad I ran away and blamed him. Haha, and I'm still making fun of him. Assassin can give self dash. Story 73. When people in my family die, I could not care less. I love them, but their deaths do not affect me in any form or fashion. Also, when Reddit is down, I masturbate with my right hand and masturbate at the same speed with my left. Story 74. I roll joints like a pro. I can roll quickly, and I can also roll whilst walking. Not something I can tell everyone, unfortunately, or put on a resume someday.